What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 18. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for coming back and listening. This week's episode is very similar to last week's episode, where we're trying to catch up on a couple of movies from 2021 that I was not able to see in theaters or streaming anywhere. And so we're trying to catch up on those. As of this specific recording from 2022, we have not gotten a new fresh movie come out in theaters, or at least one that I'm interested in watching. Most of the movies that are going to be coming out this year are coming out in February. Uncharted is one of those specific films, and we got a couple of other ones coming up as well. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity for me to catch up and watch Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. I remember, and I just kind of jump into my general thoughts of why I wanted to watch this specific movie. So I wanted to watch this one in theaters, but it came out very similar to, I think, The Night House, where it came out in a very busy month where there was other films like Venom 2, No Time to Die, Dune, and I didn't really have a chance to kind of check this one out. So it slipped through the cracks, but now we are here at the beginning of 2022 and checking this specific film out. The first thing that caught my eye was the cast. You have Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer starring in it. And it just definitely has that star power of actors that can make a story very interesting. Another factor of why I wanted to watch this film was the setting and the plot that was shown during the trailers. It seemed to be during the times, medieval times, really, where men would just joust and duel to the death. The setting alone makes this film more interesting to me just because, you don't really watch too many movies during that era. There's definitely a lot of shows or things that they might show on different channels. I don't typically check those out. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of change up the kind of pacing that I typically see from different films like comic book movies, where the settings are, again modern times as well. We then see the film deals with the tragic event of a woman being raped. In this case, it was Jodie Comer's character. And we have this understanding that she's trying, we don't really know who's telling the truth or not. I really enjoy a good mystery, and especially when it's trying to find out before the end of the film. I'm trying to see if my theory in my head, the one that I'm crafting, ends up coming true. 9 times out of 10, probably 10 times out of 10, that theory is never the one that comes up in my head, but it's always fun to kind of go through that when you're watching a show or a movie. So that's what also intrigued me about this specific film, The Last Duel. Lastly, the trailer states that the story was based on true events, which gives me a much more interesting aspect when you know that certain parts of a film are really embedded in history. Those are just some of the things that caught my attention and were the reasons why I wanted to watch The Last Duel. Now that I've kind of talked about why I wanted to watch this specific movie, didn't get a chance to see it in theaters, but I was able to stream it on HBO Max. I wanted to give you guys my overall detailed thoughts about this specific movie. I can definitely say that this movie was a very awesome experience to watch. I sound like a broken record, but I really wish I could have checked this film out in theaters just because of the action that was included in various scenes was really good. I did not expect there to be much of it. And not every scene includes some type of fight or action. There's definitely a lot of dialogue in this film. But when that action kicks into the specific film, the visuals were just on point. Kudos to Ridley Scott for being able to bring this story to life. Like I mentioned in the first segment, the story is about a woman who was raped, and the film takes us through this story from 3 different perspectives, or chapters really, as the movie goes along. We go through the perspectives of Jean de Courage. I'm probably pronouncing all of these names wrong, but I'll try my best anyway. Jean de Courage is actually played by Matt Damon. Jacques Legris is played by Adam Driver. And Lady Marguerite is played by Jodie Comer. And each one of these characters ends up trying to explain their side of the story in each one of those chapters that I had mentioned. I thought it was a great way to tell the narrative of the film so that you can actually see each character and really see from their perspective and their eyes what they thought was the truth. What I like most about the different chapters was that, John and Jacques their stories were obviously altered in specific ways to make them have the spotlight in their story. And it's not until we actually get to Lady Marguerite's story that we actually see some truths of that play out as well. For example, during chapter 1, Jean de Courage goes through his story from the moment he met Lady Marguerite and eventually married her, all the way to offering to fight his good friend Jacques Legris to a duel in order to see if Lady Marguerite was lying about the accusation of rape. In his story, he is made to seem very heroic and somewhat respected. In his story, related to Lady Marguerite, it actually shows that he's very much in love with him, and you see this love that just feels so good. However, by the time it gets to chapter 3, Lady Marguerite's story shows Jean as, what he truly is, a man just looking to make a legacy and caring about nothing else around him. She also was not as madly in love as in John's story. So it just made it even more hilarious when you got to that last chapter to see the truth as well. In chapter 2, Jacques explains his point of view of the story, making Jean look more of like a buffoon. Everybody would laugh at him at different points, and he was not respected at all. Now, in Jacques' story, again played by Adam Driver, he recalls Lady Marguerite being more flirtatious with him and actually consenting to the sex that they would have. But of course, chapter 3 reveals that Jacques' story does not really line up to what he was portraying. And chapter 3 provides what really happened leading up to the duel between Jean and Jacques. This duel had a lot of importance due to the fact that in the 14th century, women needed the support of men to make such accusations. And so in this duel, Jean was fighting to prove that his wife was telling the truth. However, if Jean lost to Jacques, it would mean that she was lying about the rape accusations and would be lashed and hung in front of the entire community that lived. Pretty intense stuff, and it kind of makes me grateful that we don't live in those times anymore, as there was, again, that way of thinking back then was just very one-dimensional. Like I always say in every review, I'm not going to spoil the ending, so I won't say, what truths were real, what was fake, but again, I want everybody to enjoy it at their own leisure. So overall, I thought the movie was really good. The narrative made sense. With the exception of Jacques' story, I feel like they could have exaggerated that one a little bit more so that the audience would make us doubt whether his story was truthful or not. Me going through it, I as soon as I saw what happened in chapter 2, which is Jacques' story, I kind of already figured out like, oh well, this is what happened. And so, to me, I feel like it should have made it a little bit more of an exaggeration or a lie, so that by the time you get to chapter 3, Lady Marguerite's story, it would have maybe made us doubt us a little bit more about this character. Maybe would have made us doubt Lady Marguerite and see, okay, is she telling the truth? And then finally, when we get to the end, you would understand a little bit more. I'm trying to be as vague as I can. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. Definitely go ahead and check out this movie. That chapter 2 didn't take away anything from the film. I just thought it could have been explained in a different way. I also thought the runtime was pretty good for the film. It was around 2 hours and a half. It covered a lot of ground and was able to provide some extra detail for each story that was being told. That way it didn't feel like you were really running through the exact same story over and over again. It definitely has pieces where it's explaining the same exact scene, just, from different perspectives. Overall, I thought it was a cool movie to watch, and I don't regret putting it on HBO Max. All right, now that I've kind of explained the overall thoughts I had after watching the movie, I like to also point out what was my favorite performance or, moments from these specific films. Let's go ahead and start off with my favorite performance by an actor or actress. I think I forgot to mention this in the previous segment, but everyone did a heck of a job in the movie. What made the film so cool was that each actor would portray their character in almost 3 different lights. One, since the story was being told in 3 chapters, you had to kind of show off each character in a different type of perspective from a different lens. Big props to Ben Affleck, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer for portraying their characters very well. But my favorite performance was actually Matt Damon. I felt like, the character compared to Jacques and Marguerite, Jean, which is Matt Damon's character, had the most drastic change. Like I mentioned earlier, Jean started the film with his perspective. So that's the first lens that we see. And we get to see him again presented as a great squire who would eventually become a knight. Jean showed how he cared for not only the people around him, but also his wife, Lady Marguerite. And then everything starts changing, where in chapter 2, again, Damon switches it up, and it has to act in a more obnoxious way, acts as if he's owed everything from land to being a knight, and finally that respect that he feels like he's supposed to be given. And then when we get to chapter 3 for Lady Marguerite's story, Matt Damon shows his real side. And he shows Jean as the character that's basically, he doesn't care about others. He only cares about himself. He doesn't care about the relationship with Lady Marguerite. And again, that's where Damon changes the character again to make him look like a real dick, really, to Lady Marguerite. Taking nothing away from Jodie Comer and Adam Driver, but I thought that Matt Damon did really well in The Last Duel and earned my favorite performance. But once again, that takes nothing away from everybody else. All right, now that I've explained my favorite actor, now I want to go into my favorite scene or moment of the film. Like in most podcasts and episodes, I want to throw out the spoiler warning to anybody that has not seen the film. Feel free to skip a few minutes ahead as I go into a bit more detail around my favorite moment or scene in the movie. Again, I don't want to ruin this moment at all for you guys, so if you have not seen The Last Duel, please go check it out and skip ahead a few minutes in the podcast. All right, hopefully that's enough time, but to the surprise of no one, my favorite scene in this film was the action sequence that took place during one of these stories. I'm going to keep it very vague because, I don't want to spoil it completely. I just want to mention a couple spoilers here and there. Of course, you can't talk about The Last Duel without an actual duel taking place. Once again, I won't go into detail of the specifics, but man, there's a specific kill that Jean, Matt Damon's character, was able to perform on someone, and it was, not only was it creative, but it was gruesome as well. I was watching it at home and even I was screaming when I saw the brutal kill. I was like, oh my, I was like, wow, that was unexpected. And so again, I'm not going to say who was killed, but you'll know when you're able to check out this movie. Again, I'll even give you the chapter. It was during chapter 3, but man, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about when you see that specific kill. Speaking of action sequences, the actual duel between Jacques and Jean was impressive, considering Adam Driver and Matt Damon, as well as the stunt team that were kind of helping out in that part of the movie, pulled off some great work with swords, shields, and even lances during the duels. Credit should be given to Ridley Scott as well and the cameraman, as they did not have to include too many cuts, which I appreciate. Sometimes in different films and movies, you get like a lot of fights involved with weapons, and there's a lot of cuts, which makes it look very choppy. And so that's what I really appreciate about this one, is that it just was very nice little flow, not a lot of cuts, and it was just seamless action throughout. So again, it made it easy to follow the action, which I very much appreciated, and I enjoyed the film even more because of that. So definitely check out those action scenes when they do pop up in The Last Duel. All right, now that I've kind of gone through, I'm going to go into the last segment of, does this movie have the potential to be timeless? Okay, so far I've said nothing but good things about this movie, and while I think it has many great parts to it, as of today, I don't consider it timeless. It has potential. It definitely has potential. But for me, now that I know what happens and having to go through those 3 chapters over and over again, it wouldn't really motivate me to put the film on multiple times. However, the action in the film was pretty cool, and I would definitely rewatch it just to check out that duel between Jean and Jacques, because I thought it was just so impressive how they were able to pull it off. For example, if I was watching the movie with someone that had never seen it before, I would definitely consider rewatching it. I'd say, yeah, let's go ahead and watch it. I want to kind of have your take on what you thought about the story in the 3 chapters. Or if it was on TV and chapter 3 was just starting, then I would probably sit down and continue to check out the film. But what makes it tough for these types of movies where it kind of deals with a specific story and it's a mystery, after you find out that specific mystery and the characters, which ones are lying, you kind of know the whole gist of the story, so it kind of loses a little bit of that interest. There are exceptions to those type of films. One of the first ones that comes to mind is Knives Out. It was actually a movie that came out in 2019 that included like Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, and it was definitely one of those murder mystery movies. And it's actually one that I've rewatched several times, even though I know exactly what happens. I know who is the murderer. I know how it all plays out. But just because of the humor in it, the way the story kind of flows, it just makes it much more enjoyable every time you rewatch it as well. So again, there's definitely exceptions. And that's, again, the one aspect that I just don't see from The Last Duel. I just don't see that, that same flow that happened. Maybe it has to do with the chapters. I still enjoyed how they portrayed the film in different chapters to show the characters change from story to story. But again, That's just my opinion. At the moment, I just don't think this film is a timeless one that I would rewatch again, but that could always change in the near future as well. Anyway, those are my thoughts and opinions, guys. But what do you think about this movie? Have you seen The Last Duel? And if so, is this film timeless for you? Let me know down below in the comments. I would love to interact with you guys and just kind of go through any specific scenes, answer any specific questions that you had about the film, and just kind of talk about how fun this movie was to watch as well. All right, everybody. That is it for me on this specific podcast. I want to say thank you to everybody for coming back and listening. This was a fun movie to watch, and I am excited to review the next movie in episode 19. Guys, my name is Victor Vasquez. This is the Timeless Movie Podcast. Thank you so much, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. All right, guys, take care.